Hello everyone. Today I'm covering errors that arise from having variables that don't exist in Eclipse. These usually come up as saying that the variable that you're trying to use doesn't exist. I will have a description that links to different parts of the video to save you some time. Although this video is covering errors in Eclipse, I will try to explain them well enough so that this info is transferable to other IDEs. I have already created a project called variables_declaring_video and have a class created called variable tester. Feel free to make your workspace match what I have here. This error usually occurs when the programmer screws up the scope in their program. Here's a simple program with variables for name and age. One is a string and the other is an integer. Now, if we try to initialize the variables without declaring them, we are basically saying store this value in space, in memory, that does not exist. This is clearly very dumb, because you can't put something in a container that doesn't actually exist. We need to first state what we are putting in it. If we want to put a very large age, such as 6 billion, would that be better for an integer or a long? It would be for a long, since 6 billion is a very large number. But you need to have a lot of space to be able to hold that number. Notice that since we are trying to put 6 billion inside of age, we are getting an error. It says that it is out of range. So we need to go and change this to a long. And notice that we get no issues. I had to put the L at the end of the number to indicate that we are putting in a long. Now, if we have a program with an if statement that executes if the name equals John or Sarah, we declare and initialize the age to either 21 or 19. However, if we run it, it will say that age cannot be resolved to a variable. There are other variations of this, such as saying that the symbol does not exist or it cannot find the symbol. But the symbol is there, isn't it? We both declare it here and we declare it here. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that it is being declared in a smaller scope. If we have a variable and declare the variables inside a pair of brackets, which usually define the scope, we basically say you can only use the variable anywhere inside these brackets. You can, however, use the variable in pairs of brackets that are further inside the scope. If we have the variable name in an if statement that declares the variable age, we can only use it in that if statement. Notice that the variables in larger scopes can be used in scopes inside of them. Scopes are usually defined by curly brackets. If a variable is declared in a pair of brackets, it can only be used in the code contained in those brackets. Notice that if we encase and declare a variable inside of a set of brackets, just randomly, we get a bunch of errors up here. This is because the string name has now been declared in a completely different scope. Please note that you never want to randomly just put these brackets in here. These are completely useless, and at no point in programming ever should you ever do it like this. The only time there should be brackets is if there's a useful statement, such as an if statement, methods, loops, or switch statements. Never just put these here just because. It is because of this scope issue that if statements, since they have curly brackets, will move a variable such as age up in scope. So then you can no longer use it in here. This also goes for your reference variables, such as scanner. If we decide to put it in curly brackets, you can no longer use the scanner variable. And this will work for any other variable, such as the random variable. If we put that variable inside of two curly brackets, we can no longer use it out here. So we will go and remove these curly brackets since they actually serve zero purpose. Thanks to scopes, we can have multiple variables called age within the same program, but they are pretty useless right now and create huge amounts of redundant code. Now let's try to go and declare age outside of that scope. Notice that there are errors now showing up in the inner age variables. It is saying that there are duplicate local variables. This is because, since this is the larger variable in the larger scope, you cannot have any of these in here because they are all conflicting with each other since they have the same name, and since this one's in the larger scope, it can also be referenced inside of smaller scopes, which is why you can't declare it multiple times since there's no point to. Now, if we remove those int statements, we are now just initializing age. We are no longer declaring age inside of these two scopes. We declare age out here and initialize it here. Now notice that we're getting an error because if the user enters a name such as Max, then age won't be initialized. So we will initialize age to 1. And notice that works and it runs. And if we enter John, we get his age. This is generally how for loops work. For example, we might have something like this. For loops are very interesting since they go and declare and initialize their variables naturally inside of the parentheses. Now ask yourself, is there going to be an error if we try to use the I variable outside of this scope? If you said that we wouldn't, you're correct. I can only be used inside of these two brackets. But if we have an if statement, we'll be able to use I inside of here, since this is inside of the for loop scope. Please note that these are all local variables. There are special variables called fields that are treated very differently in Java. Hopefully this cleared up a few things. Declaring variables inside any pairs of brackets makes them only useful inside those brackets. The concept of scopes is used inside of loops, switches, if statements, and methods. If you create any of those statements, then you will be messing with the area of scopes in Java. Hopefully this video helped you. Please let me know, give me some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.